What is printing people? Welcome back to Custom 3D. Today, I'm going to talk about the current state of the 3D printing industry and where it is headed in the future, ranging from hobbyist to industrial 3D printing. So, thanks guys, stay tuned, and I hope you learned something today. In this video, I'm not really going to get into the background of 3D printing. If you want to learn more about that, you should check out my video on how 3D printing will put people on Mars. That goes over the brief history of 3D printing. Today, I'm going to talk about the biggest players in 3D printing on both sides, industrial and hobbyist, the current state of the companies, and just my opinion on the market today, and give you some insight on different companies within the industry that are big players. Why don't we start off with the hobbyist industry? Now, the hobbyist industry has really started to become massive in the past 10 years with the creation of the MakerBot and Prusa and Creality and all these other brands that have really come into fruition. Creality obviously being on the more recent side. So basically, the hobbyist market is really shamed upon by the industrial market. I've been to a trade show and tried to market my 3D printing company to these bigger players in the industry. I'm in New England, so in the New England area. And a lot of people, when you tell them, oh, I have XYZ machines, they're hobbyists, they kind of politely laugh at you and tell you to go away. It's really interesting because if hobbyist machines are so bad, why did Stratasys buy MakerBot? You know, because MakerBot was a big hobbyist player in the industry, and Stratasys bought them. Now let's go over who Stratasys is. And I guess I'm kind of leaking into the industrial side of the market here, but they really intertwine with each other more than you may imagine. So Stratasys was the first FDM 3D printing company. Like I said, go to the Mars video to learn more history about it. But they're currently, a several billion-dollar company, $600+ million in annual revenue a year, and they were terrified of MakerBot and those types of low-cost machines because they were so low cost, and you can get very comparable models to what their machines were putting out for at least $20,000 going up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, where the MakerBot was $2,000. And basically, they bought their competitor and basically streamlined them so that they were end-to-end, controlled by the company, and basically took hold of that side and that company of the hobbyist market. Now, this was a huge acquisition, and I am going to call out Bre Pettis here, who was the CEO of MakerBot, who is kind of, but very much a sellout. Now, he's a rich sellout because I think his net worth is $50 million, but I can tell you right now, he's not laughing anymore because the guy that founded Formlabs might be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and his company right now is worth billions, which is more than MakerBot, and they're much more reputable within the hobbyist market because they stuck true to their foundations of when they were created. MakerBot came into the play saying, we're going to take down these big companies, you don't need to be charging all this money, and then they sold out to their people that, they were trying to destroy. It'd be like Apple coming onto the scene and then selling out to IBM in the 80s. Obviously the company sizes aren't on the same scale, but it's basically the same thing in the 3D printing industry. Obviously, Steve Jobs wouldn't be recognized as a brilliant, talented artist. He's right there. I don't know, right there. Yeah. He would be called a sellout, and that would be that. The brilliant guy would be Bill Gates. Not a huge fan of him because he's kind of a weirdo, but you can't have that much money and not be a weirdo, I guess. But anyways, Yeah, MakerBot sold out to Stratasys, and they're currently still in business, and their main competitor is Ultimaker, which is a better machine. I've used both, and Ultimaker is better, more open source. It is sort of perfectly balanced the customer service of closed source, which is the main benefit of things being closed end to end, and open source. Now, they're slowly but surely moving towards completely closed source, especially with the new Ultimaker 3. Because the HUD ends are only Ultimaker branded, where the Ultimaker 2, you could replace a nozzle with any other brand and so on and so forth. But you can still work on the machine without being overwhelmed, which is very nice. And MakerBot is trying to beat them. I don't see them coming close. Maybe when the numbers come out for the end of this year, they'll be closer. But Ultimaker has really taken the education market from them because their machines are just simply better. And people are starting to realize that if you know anything about 3D printing. So let's move off from those type of machines, which I like to call makerspace machines because they're great for makerspaces in schools and colleges, because they're easier to use than the hundreds of dollars 3D printer range, as in Creality, Anycubic, Elegoo, all these Chinese brands that they break easier, you need to have more patience with them, and they're not really good for makerspace where kids just walk up to them, want to print a boat, and call it good. They need a little bit more tweaking than that. Now, you could argue with me, you can modify it and things like that, but these schools just want a printer out of the box that works. Sort of like the FlashForge Finder, which I donated to a school, which is actually really awesome because it's $300, and the teacher, who had no past experience with 3D printing, can use it perfectly fine. I pre-slice the models for her, put it on there, and the kids love it. Whenever she needs models sliced, the kids want them, I'll slice them for her, email them to her, and it's golden, and it's a great printer for a school for $300. It's actually insane and kind of doesn't justify buying an Ultimaker for that sort of use. I think those are more suited for colleges where they might be actually using it for more rigid and applicable different situations, like hinges or gears or things like that you might need to do PETG or flexible or something like that, because you can't do that on the FlashForge. But I digress. So let's kind of put a timestamp here, and we'll move on to the more modern times of 3D printing. It is currently August 2nd, 2021. Now, in my opinion, and we're still on the hobbyist market here, we've reached a roadblock. And that roadblock, not roadblocks, God, stuck in 2015. That roadblock is coming up with new and original 3D printers. Creality jumped on the scene, I think it was 2017, with the CR10. And people loved it, open source, cheap, printed, PLA, ABS, sort of, great for $400, which is insane and was unheard of at the time. Now, fast forward to here, and we still have 5 years later, the same machines people are buying, and a lot of companies have come out with clones of CR10s and Crealities Ender 3s. And you just see it from Elegoo and Anycubic, and it's just the same updated Ender 3 variant, and it just says, oh, ours has belt tensioner knobs and an LCD screen and automated bed leveling and a PEI sheet, which is really great, but the design is exactly the same. And for people that review 3D printers or just like buying 3D printers just to have a different one, it's starting to get really, really dry and not worth buying another Ender 3. You're just saving up and buying more expensive printers because they're so boring. I would love to see a new design come on to the scene, and I think Creality got kind of close with that with the Ender 7 that just recently came out and has been reviewed by a lot of different people. And it's a Core XY, it prints really fast, and it has a slightly different design than a regular Ender 3, seeing that it has a top on it and it is a Core XY. And it's just a cool printer, but I'd say it's maybe halfway there to where we need to be. I think, the next groundbreaking thing is we need to see an Ultimaker MakerBot-esque printer for $500. Now, Creality has tried that with, I think, the CR1 or something like that. They have a couple of enclosed 3D printers that are in the hundreds of dollars, and I think the I don't remember, but they're just bland. They come with really cheap hot ends. They're enclosed, and they use the same technology on their opened machines, and they break, and they're really difficult to fix, whereas Ultimakers barely ever break, so you don't need to open it up and fix it, and it creates huge issues. So we need to see an Ultimaker build quality and reliability at the less than $1,000 to $500 mark. And I think that'll be the next big break in the 3D printing industry and make those companies really struggle and scramble and try to create a cool product. Now, competition is great. That's what makes capitalism awesome. And competitors try to beat each other out. You see it in the car industry all the time. This is what I love about 3D printing is everybody was trying to one-up each other. You had MakerBot, Ultimaker, Prusa, all these different companies trying to one-up each other, and now everybody's copying each other, and it's really, really unfortunate for the 3D printing industry. So now let's jump into the industrial 3D printing market. Now, this is where you really see competitive form come into place. Now, there is copying of each other, but they still one-up each other, sort of. So there are two huge players in the industrial market, and that is Stratasys and 3D Systems. I've worked with Stratasys machines. I have not worked with 3D Systems machines, but Stratasys, like I said earlier, is the FDM OG, and 3D Systems is the SLA OG, I guess, which is, sort of, yeah, it is the OG. Now, these two companies, like I said, very similar in revenue, very similar in size, main competitors. And actually, Stratasys has tried to come out with SLA machines, and 3D Systems have tried to come out with FDM machines, and neither can do as good of a job as they can do with their own technology. Now, you see DLMS, which is metal 3D printing with lasers, sort of like SLS, really come into play now. Stratasys just released their first printer in this field, and I have a surprise player for you that a lot of people don't know that make 3D printers, and I'll tell you that in a second. But both these companies have been battling it out since the 1980s, and neither one has really come out on top. They're still plateauing, but they've really panicked, like I said, when MakerBot came out, and 3D Systems MakerBot was Formlabs, and 3D Systems actually tried to sue Formlabs for copying their technology when really it was totally different layout of SLA. Believe it or not, 3D Systems SLA 3D printers do not do the traditional hobbyist pool of resin dunking in to the with the build plate dunking into the pool of resin and lifting it out with the flash of UV light. It's basically the other way around, where the print is basically going down out of the pool. There's still a pool of resin, and there's a laser from the top, and it's drawing it out, layer by layer, and then there's a platform that moves down, and then when the print is done, it lifts it up, if that makes sense. And for 3D Systems tried to sue Formlabs for the latter option of SLA 3D printing. So, like I said, both these companies have been around for a while. They're great companies, but the only advantage I think they have over hobbyist 3D printers is the advanced materials and the certifications they get to work with other industrial manufacturers like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, all these different companies that companies like mine can't really make parts for because I'm not certified. And that's where Ultem comes into play. You need a highly modified hobbyist 3D printer to print an Ultem, which is a 300 plus degrees Celsius material, and it acts like ABS, where in an open machine, if you don't have the proper heating, the edges will curl up. Well, this is that times 10, because this material is super, super hot, and you really just can't do it on a hobbyist machine. You need an industrial enclosed 3D printer. And actually, Stratasys, the patent for that enclosed build chamber has actually ran out last year, or earlier this year, actually, I think. And I'm curious to see what these companies that currently exist in the hobbyist market do with that released patent design. Obviously, they can't completely copy it because they'll just re-up the patent, but they can see the designs and the inner workings. Because when you see people with enclosed build chambers, the biggest drawback is it gets too hot in there, and the motors and the main boards and all the tech overheats. Stratasys was able to design an enclosed build chamber where the oven, where actually 3D prints, is completely separate from the motors so that they would stay cool and wouldn't overheat. So my prediction for where the industry is going is that one of these big competitors has to come out with a lower cost, original 3D printer that's not an Ender 3 design, obviously under the $500 mark. Prusa Mini is a great 3D printer. I'm actually going to buy one here in the next couple of days and hopefully come out with a review for the channel. So, yeah, the 3D printing industry on the hobbyist side has come to a stalemate of originality, and hopefully somebody will come out with the next big thing pretty soon. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and learned something about the industrial and the 3D printing industry and where it is heading. So, thanks guys, and I'll catch you in the next one, and make sure to check out all the links in the description below.